Hi, friends. This is Chad.
And this is Lauren.
We're back with another episode of For Good Forever. Today's episode is all about how thoughtful guidance, personal experience, and approachable entry points help people feel more confident about getting involved in community-focused work. Giving is not just centered around monetary donations. It also focuses on using your time and talent to support local community impact.
Today we're joined by Katelyn Doyle, an estate planning attorney and community leader who brings a unique perspective to conversations about legacy, generosity, and long-term impact. Welcome, Katelyn. We appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
So we want to start, we start every session with our either or segment, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to give you a choice between two things, and you let us know which you prefer, fall or summer.
Fall.
Ditto. Hike in the bluffs or a stroll along the river?
Gotta say, hike in the bluffs.
Do you have a favorite trail?
I don't. I mean, I love them all. We have two Vishlas at home, and so they just love running, and so we take them out on the trails as often as we can.
Sweet or salty?
Both?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a combination is my fave. That one's a tough one. You're a dog person, I assume?
I'm a dog person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you also a cat person or just pretty much?
Yeah,
dogs?
I love cats. I grew up with a cat. I mean, I'm just like an animal person in general. My parents have like a little hobby farm with alpacas, and my sister has like a horse and some mini horses. So it's a fun time.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what a blast. I
Yeah.
want to come to the hobby farm. That's
Yes,
so fun.
please do.
And then last one, coffee hour or happy hour?
Coffee hour for sure.
Thanks for playing along.
Well, let's start today just learning a little bit about your professional background. Can you tell us what was your path to becoming an attorney and what led you specifically into estate planning?
Yeah, so both of my parents are attorneys, so no surprise that I ended up becoming an attorney as well. It wasn't always my goal. Growing up, I'd go to work with my parents on, take your kid to work day, and I thought it was like so boring because they were just like sitting in their office and like taking phone calls and going into meetings, but it's like not boring at all. Even estate planning, which sounds probably like one of the most boring areas of law, is not at all, because it's really personal and you get to know your clients, quite well, and get to know their family stories. And I love it. As far as how I ended up in estate planning, it kind of just fell into my lap, honestly, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I'm quite an introvert, so I never wanted to be like a courtroom attorney or anything like that. I really like the one-on-one, getting to know your clientele. And estate planning is kind of like doing a puzzle. Winter activities like puzzling is one of my favorite things. So to be able to do that every day at work and, take different aspects of a client's life and, their assets and their family and work on a plan that is very, wholesome and ticks all the boxes for them, is really satisfying and enjoyable for me.
Yeah, very cool. I hadn't thought, it really is an intimate relationship with your estate planning attorney. So for those that don't know, Katelyn also serves on the Crosse Area Community Foundation board, has for a few years now, and just recently became our development committee chair. Can you tell us a little bit what initially sparked your interest in community leadership and maybe specifically getting involved with LACF?
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back to my parents again. Both of my parents are public servants and grew up taking my sister and me to different, fundraisers and volunteer events. I remember going to like fish fries at church on Fridays, the classic Wisconsin activities. And volunteering there. Both of my parents are active politically, and so getting involved that way was always interesting as a child. But once I graduated from college and law school and came back here, I started working at Johns Flaherty & Collins, which is an awesome law firm. Our slogan is actually good neighbors, great lawyers. So they really encourage us to get involved in the community and to give back to the community that we are serving. And so our managing partner, Brent Smith, encouraged me to get involved in the Community Foundation. He's like, hey, Katie, I think I know a good organization that you would enjoy being a part of. And he was right, as always. So I started by joining at that point, it was the Impact Committee. It was just a fabulous committee to be a part of. I got to be part of the strategic plan a couple of years ago, which I felt like helped me really learn a lot more about the foundation. And so when I was asked to join the board, it was an easy yes to kind of get more involved and learn even more about the organization and hopefully have an even bigger impact.
Well, we're super grateful to have you with us. I'm going to go off script a little bit and ask questions. So you have kind of this family legacy of service, and I know you're the mom of a young one. Do you think you'll try to do that same sort of thing with your own children?
Oh, I hope so. My husband and I met each other in Rotary. I think we're definitely going to encourage our children to get involved in the community in any way that we can. We currently bring him to, community events when we can, just to show him what it's like to connect with members of your community. I know social impact and social capital is a huge thing with the foundation right now, and just showing the importance of having those community connections is going to be very important. And, I am very fortunate to have parents who supported me both financially and emotionally, and I hope to do that as well to raise a successful young man and soon a successful young daughter. And so I want to do everything I can to help them, but also to show them that they are lucky. Not everybody is born into a family like ours, and to not take for granted that this doesn't just fall into everybody's laps. Some people have to work a lot harder to achieve the success that we've been lucky to have.
Love that. Shout out to Rotary, right? To my couple.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding love in the Rotary.
Yeah,
love it.
Well, yeah. So since we have an estate planning attorney in the room, let's talk a little bit about that work.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you work with people at really meaningful and personal points in their lives. How has that influenced how you see community impact?
I think it's kind of a multifaceted answer because, I see people at like the best times in their lives and at the worst times in their lives. And so part of what I've seen is how people have benefited from community support. So individuals who have maybe experienced an accident or a family tragedy, a death in the family, an injury, and have seen that community support rise up around them. And then the other way around is, people who are planning they're kind of like in two different areas. Either they're planning because something bad has happened, or they're planning because they want to be prepared and ensure that, the worst doesn't happen, or that they're ready for when the worst does happen. And so as part of that, people are very forward looking and looking to see how they can use their assets to support their loved ones, but also those organizations and projects that they are passionate about.
Yeah. So they're really conversations, some of it at least, about what's my legacy. So when you're been privileged to be in that space with so many people thinking about what's my imprint on the world, what's my legacy. What did you learn from those discussions?
I've learned a lot. I think the main thing is that people in the Crosse area are very generous, and they are very interested in giving back to this amazing community that has supported them throughout their lifetimes. But the other thing I've learned is that people give for a lot of different reasons. Some people just want to leave these lasting legacies, related to like their family name or related to the business. People have, passion projects. So, our very own Maureen Kinney has, always been passionate about conservation. And so she has been long involved with Mississippi Valley Conservancy. And then I see clients who, have benefited from organizations and projects during their lifetime and want to give back to those projects and organizations upon their death. And then, I have this like lovely couple that comes to mind when I think about leaving a legacy. They are in their 80s and they never had children. And they, lived a very, very frugal life. They have, this lovely, cozy home, but never, went and did anything extravagant with their money. And they bought Fastenal stock in the 70s.
Oh, very smart.
Yeah. So now they have this huge amount of money in stocks that they want to do something amazing with, so that people know that they were successful and that they worked really hard, and that they then did something amazing with their funds. And that's one of my favorite client stories is that, and I know we're probably going to get to this a little bit later, is like, you don't know where this money is hiding. Because, your next door neighbor might have these funds that they've worked really, really hard for, and they're just waiting to do something great with it.
Yeah, I know we've talked in our development committee about that millionaire next door.
Yeah.
That money is quiet. So your clients, just for the record, if they're looking for something amazing and they need some partnership on that, I know some people.
They've met with Megan already. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Katelyn, about kind of like the demographic of your clients. I'm someone who experienced a near-death experience early in life, and so I have kind of gone through the process of putting together a will and thinking about what estate planning might look like. Do you often have younger folks come in, or is your clientele kind of this older, aging generation who knows the end of life is coming?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lauren. I would say people who think about estate planning tend to be older because they know that death is a little bit more imminent than us younger folks who think that we are invincible. I think that planning is probably most important for young parents who have children that would need some sort of care and protection and support if something were to happen to those parents. And I do have a lot of those young families who are looking to do exactly that, which to me is great to see. I personally feel that everybody over the age of 18 should have an estate plan in place. Because estate planning is not just about preparing for death, it is about preparing for your incapacity during your lifetime as well. So with power of attorney documents, we make sure that we have an agent who can assist us with medical and financial decisions. And anyone over the age of 18 could possibly use that. And then there's just so many things that can happen to us. I mean, unfortunately, death is inevitable. And so being prepared for that just makes it easier for everyone involved. I look at estate planning as being a gift to your survivors, not just to something that you do for yourself.
Yeah. So then your clients don't have to be people with wealth.
Definitely
it's
not.
Not just for people with wealth.
Oh my gosh, no, definitely not. I mean, you could have zero money, but if you, if you're in an accident and can't make your own decisions, you need to have that agent named. Otherwise, we're going through a guardianship proceeding, which is not an inexpensive proceeding, and it's a court proceeding, and it's not a fun time.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no requirement to have any type of wealth, but people kind of forget that, owning a house is an asset. You've got income, you've got, maybe some bank accounts, retirement, life insurance. So I think when you sit down and actually take a close look, people have more assets than they really think they have. But no matter what your financial status is, having an estate plan in place is important.
Well, that's actually maybe a little dark, but a good segue to talk about. Well, I mean, I think about planning. I'm really excited to share with folks. One of the things we partnered on this spring here at the Community Foundation is what we've called a transfer of wealth study. A number of community foundations across the state partnered with some researchers from the University of Minnesota to kind of identify what's happening as our baby boomers and above generation are leaving and thinking about what their legacy might be, what they could do. And folks might be surprised to know that in the next 10 years, right in La Crosse County, almost $1.5 billion of wealth is going to transfer from those folks to somewhere. And you kind of alluded to all the places that could go. We've looked at it a lot. We're very interested in the data that if 5% of that, a fairly small amount of it, came to places like the Community Foundation and to all those kind of causes we talked about, you could actually create over $71 million in new endowments, in permanent funds for our community, which would then yield over the next 20 years like $85 million in dollars to invest in all kinds of things, whether it be housing, help folks launch businesses, you can support nonprofits, all kinds of things. So we know this is happening across the country. We also know it's happening right here. So when we think about that, I mean, what do you think that transfer of wealth means for future generations?
Well, I think for the La Crosse Area Community Foundation, it means that there's a huge opportunity to engage with potential donors. And I know, I referenced our strategic plan earlier, and we have been very deliberate about seeking out these potential new sources of donations. And I think with this data, it just underlines the importance of connecting with those potential future donors. Our collective giving program started, which is where, typically a little bit younger generations are more willing to donate smaller amounts to these organizations or projects that they feel passionate about. But maybe they don't have, the $5, $10, $15,000 needed to set up like a donor advised fund or an endowment. But getting those connections in place now would be important because those are the people who are going to be inheriting funds potentially if the funds don't go directly from the person who has died to a nonprofit organization or a community foundation. So I think getting those types of connections in place right now is going to be super important. And then, you asked like what it means for the community. I mean, I think if we can get those funds in now, it means that we will have a more prosperous and secure future for our community. Because I mean, we're struggling right now with a lot of things, our unhoused population, childcare, education, all of that, and taxes aren't always keeping up with being able to fund those programs. So having this secure, money available at the Community Foundation, which is endowed and is going to be here forever, I think is very important and is going to ensure that we have a more secure, prosperous, and vibrant community in the future.
Yeah, no, I think it's really a unique opportunity, and I appreciate that you thought of both perspectives. Of course, there's money that could potentially come directly to a place like this, but it'll also be as folks are making these choices. There's just I think one of the takeaways was too when I was reading through this material, is what you said earlier that there's much more wealth than folks think.
Yeah.
And I think, and then it doesn't always have to be a large amount to make the difference in the time that they have. So yeah, we're very excited. We just started digging into this, but thinking about all those strategies. We've even talked about. Well, but let me ask you, because obviously, is it fair to say that most people, when they're doing legacy planning, financial legacy planning, the first people they think of are children? Is that?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
We've tried to think about what about the idea that if the community was important to you, you maybe think about it as another heir. Is that a frame that works for some folks?
I think so. I think if people feel passionate about their community that they live in and feel that that community has supported them and supported their family, we have a lot of teachers with our higher education institutions and a lot of doctors in our community, and the Crosse has been very good to them. And I think a lot of people recognize that and do think of, giving back because maybe their kids don't necessarily need the money because they've been successful as well. And so treating a community foundation or a nonprofit organization as kind of that other heir is a good way of looking at it. It's also, you asked earlier about reasons that people give, and one reason is tax efficiency. I mean, you have to be realistic about giving as well, and being efficient with the way that you pass your funds is a good way of looking at it as well, especially for professional advisors. Is we want our clients to do good things with their money, and donating to nonprofit organizations is a good way of doing that.
Yeah, I think there's much more to come from us with that idea that to have kind of some numerical data around that. So, just 5% could make such a difference. And I think you described well. Philanthropy fits so well in that space between what we can do through government support and those sort of things. And you mentioned taxes. Yeah, I live here. I don't need my taxes to go up anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for that.
So, Katelyn, I heard you bring up, and I want to give credit where credit's due. Our development team is really putting together this giving circles idea where, people can bring their money and kind of pool it together and have an impact in an area of social impact that's meaningful to them. If someone listening is thinking, and I've thought this, I'm not wealthy enough to make a difference in this community, what would you say to them?
Well, I think you and Chad have both said it already, and I know Nick Podesky said it in our last podcast that every dollar counts. Especially these days. Every dollar counts. Nonprofits will take advantage of every single dollar that is given. There's a lot of operating costs that people don't necessarily think about. That is imperative for keeping these organizations running. So I don't think there's too little that you can give to any organization, and especially if it's something that you continue doing throughout your lifetime. And if you are able to increase that, over the years as you grow more successful, it's I think important to establish that pattern of giving that you can then continue throughout your lifetime, because that then has a compounding impact on these organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katelyn. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. And I think most people, maybe I'm speaking from like my generation, don't have a lot of opportunities to talk to a professional advisor or someone who understands how estate planning works or what they should be planning for the future. If there are folks are you open to new clients? How do people get in contact with you?
I'm always open to new clients, and I'm always open to, educational opportunities as well. So, any organizations that are hoping to get the word out and, educate their employees or their donors or whoever, just let me know. But otherwise, I'm over at Johns Flaherty and Collins, and you can just give me a call.
Thanks again, Katelyn. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, friends. This is turning into an actual series. I love it. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Katelyn today. Stay tuned for future episodes where we'll discuss more topics such as how to engage in local philanthropy, community leadership, and giving circles.
If you'd like to stay connected with LACF, follow us on Instagram at La Crosse Area Foundation and on Facebook and LinkedIn at La Crosse Area Community Foundation. We'd love to continue the conversation.